Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Movie Goodness, where we examine life through cinema here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed. Welcome everybody to the show. Glad that you can join me as we jump into this topic that I'm pretty sure you all saw in the thumbnail or the title of this episode. But this is the first time, or at least the other day, it was the first time I watched Alien 3 The Assembly Cut. I watched Alien 3, and I'm in that real tight minority that actually enjoyed the theatrical release, the theatrical cut of Alien 3. Now, do I think it's better than Aliens? No. Alien? No. Is it better than Alien Resurrection? Yeah. Yeah, the theatrical cut and whatever cut you want to make is 10 times better than that. But I actually was a fan of Alien 3, which was directed by first-time filmmaker at the time, David Fincher, who went on to direct, give us just gem after gem. You Fight Club, Seven, The Game, The Curious Case of Benjamin Buttons. The list goes on and on. David Fincher is a beast behind the camera, but this was his first go around as a director of a feature film for a studio, that is, with Alien 3. Initially, it was developed by Renny Harlin, who at the time, Renny Harlin was at the top of his game as far as being a director, filmmaker, especially when it came to action, giving us Die Hard 2 and Cliffhanger and The Long Kiss Goodnight, all those type of films. Never in consideration for being one of the greatest filmmakers, but he was a very entertaining director. And later on, most recently, he gave us those three Stranger movies, which was, Jesus, those three collectively. Not only is that the worst trilogy of all time, it's just the worst. Even if you put them all together, it's just bad. All around, everything about that was bad. But we're not talking about Strangers. I can go on a tirade about that forever. But he ended up dropping out. Initially, the film was supposed to take place on Earth. Now, we later got that with the Hulu series, or the FX series, Alien Earth, just this past year, which was pretty good. I enjoyed that show. But back in 1992, we were going to witness Ellen Ripley on planet Earth with an alien, or aliens, whatever the case may be. And so that would have been super exciting, but that didn't come to fruition. So we got this theatrical version. And I remember it's been 35 years since the release of Alien 3. And saying it out loud makes my stomach turn, because I fondly remember going to the theater to see this movie. I remember because I was 13. I was 13 in 1992, and I remember I couldn't get in. Me and my cousin wanted to go see it, and we both were 13. And so what we did, my brother went and bought the tickets for us so we could go in and see. And he just came and picked us up after the movie. And so I remember which theater we was in and everything. I remember the conversation we had when we walked out of there. It was, man, that was the greatest thing ever. 13 years old, everything was the greatest thing ever. And I thought it was cool. The ending caught me off guard. It caught a lot of people off guard, with the fate of Ellen Ripley at that time. And with the alien bursting out, of course, it's spoilers. It's a 35-year-old movie, people. Get over. With her dying at the end of the movie, and the alien bursting out of her chest as she went down into the lava thing, and that was like unbelievable. It was unbelievable because we followed her story from Alien. She survived. Aliens, when she was with a group of Marines, she survived. Highly trained Marines couldn't, but she did. And all of this, and we get to this film, and finally she met her in. It was bold at the time, and I recognized that at the age of 13. That's a bold move, to kill off your hero in this franchise. But there's a lot of story behind that as well. Sigourney Weaver, that was a condition. It was contractually obligated to whereas she had to die at the end of this movie because she didn't want to play Ripley for the rest of her life. Even though she came back, two more times, I think, to play Ripley. But it was very, very crazy to be a part of that time. The 90s was a crazy time. Not crazier than the 80s, but it was still a crazy time. But I enjoyed the movie. And as I got older, yeah, I can point out the flaws. I can point out the many plot holes that was in that movie. I mean, gaping plot holes in Alien 3 that I didn't quite understand. I didn't understand how these inmates in this planet prison were capable of discovering the ship and bringing her out of the ship and all this here. How characters we assumed just died, throughout the film because we didn't see their demise. We didn't see what happened and they just died. The logic behind the alien bursting out of a dog and able to do the things that it does, it was just a lot of craziness that took place that, in the 90s, we didn't question much. We didn't question those films. We just was there for popcorn, to eat popcorn and be entertained. That was it. We weren't there for plot details. We just wanted to see stuff blow up. But nowadays, we need everything flushed out, explained, and make sure it makes logical sense about aliens. And so that's where we at as a people. But I say all that to say that HBO Max, they secretly, and I say secretly because there was no fanfare or anything like that behind the assembly cut of Alien 3. Now, David Fincher, Fox, 20th Century Fox at the time before Disney came in and bought him, they asked him to do a quote-unquote director's cut of Alien 3. David Fincher historically hates this movie because this wasn't his movie. This was not his vision. The studios came in and just ripped the movie apart and wanted it to go this way. And this is a whole big discussion. Studios do this to everybody. Big time directors, first time directors. It doesn't matter. But it begs a bigger question. Should the studio be involved with the development of a story? Now, if you want to have your input, that's fine. You want to give notes, that's fine. I mean, you're the money people. They the ones that give the money financing this thing. So they do have some remnants of power there. But, I mean, you hire somebody for their vision. Let them execute their vision. Well, this didn't happen for David Fincher. So they asked him to come in after the film was finished and all this here for the DVD commentary, for the special edition and all this here. Give us your cut of the film. He refused. Said no. And so what happened was, how we get the assembly cut, he had notes for the editing team. He had notes of what shots he wanted and what moments he wanted to linger on and stuff like that. Basically his vision, to a degree. This isn't his director's cut. This isn't the ultimate David Fincher edition of Alien 3. There's still stuff that's not a part of his initial vision, but this is the closest we get to what he was attempting to do back in 1992. And so, on the DVD, I didn't own the DVD. I think I had the regular one because I had the whole box set of Alien movies. Oh, I said had, but I still have them tucked off in my garage somewhere. All my DVDs, but it was just the normal DVDs. It wasn't the special edition or nothing like that. And so I never saw the assembly cut. And so when HBO Max dumped this on HBO Max, I was like, wait, there's another cut. And I'm not a big fan of director's cuts. It drives me insane. And you know who killed me with that? Was Ridley Scott. You know how many director's cuts of Blade Runner there are? There are like 5 different cuts of Blade Runner. Which one is it, Wrigley? Which one, man? Is it the theatrical? Is it your ultimate edition? Is it your director's cut, or the ultimate director's cut, or the final director's cut? There are so many editions to Blade Runner. I don't even know what it is. It's so chopped up. They're all different. They're all different. It is crazy. You know, I think, at least this is my feeling. Once you get it down, once you get it in a can, you send it off, get edited. You go over it. You go over the editing process with your editor, and this is it. This is locked down. This is the one we're going to release. This is what I want everybody to see. That's it. That's the end of it. Now, Zack Snyder is a different animal. That's a different beast, because we're talking about him being removed off of a movie, and we're talking about Justice League. And that movie was nowhere near what he wanted. The color palette, the design of the villain, the ending, what is set up, flushing out characters, and it was a mess. So when we got Zack Snyder's Justice League on HBO Max, oddly enough, a few years ago, completely different movie. Same thing with his Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. That was 2 different movies. You know, you had the Ultimate Edition, which was his, and then you had the theatrical cut. Theatrical cut, not all that great. The Ultimate Edition, still not all that great, but they did flush out more of the characters, some of the motivations of some supporting characters, and it kind of made sense. Filled in some of the plot holes. It still had a million and one others, but it filled in a few. But when it comes to Alien 3, especially after you watch the assembly cut, it makes you scratch your head and wonder what the studio was thinking. I mean, why did you mess with this? Because the assembly cut is a far superior film than the theatrical cut. I mean, leaps and bounds better. It feels like a different movie, even though the movie hits the same beats throughout. There's no big plot deviations, you know. It doesn't go in a different direction for certain characters, their motivations or their feelings. Well, one they do, and it was for the better. And that's why I'm like, what? Why just leave that on the cutting room floor? That is so silly, man. This is the first cut of a film that I watched, and it literally filled in more plot holes than any other film. I mean, almost filled them all up. It's that good of a cut. And David Fincher deserves way more credit for this film than what he's ever gotten, or what he gives himself, because the bones of his greatness was in this movie. We were just on the precipice of his phenomenal run as a filmmaker. Here, it was there the whole time. Now, this cut is sometimes referred to as the special edition and whatever edition they want to put on it, but it's all the same thing, the assembly cut. And the reason I brought up the HBO Max of it all, and I hate that I did this so late, but I didn't discover it until so late, is about to leave HBO Max. At least the time of this recording, I think it leaves in a couple of days. And, I don't know how long it was on HBO Max, but I'm pretty sure you can find it somewhere. You know, they got all these streaming services and whatnot. It's there. I'm pretty sure if you don't find it on Max before it makes its exit, is somewhere you can find the assembly cut or the special edition. However, yeah, wherever you type in the search, just search a different cut. I don't know, director's cut, whatever. But it has 30 more, roughly 30 minutes of extra footage than the theatrical version. And it, like I stated before, it vastly improves the pacing of the film. It fixed some major narrative plot holes, and it fleshes out the supporting characters. And that was another great thing. It flushed out these inmates. You know, all we got in the theatrical version was they were sentenced to life on this planet, no escape, no weapons, no nothing. They found God. They walk around and they just pray all the time. But they're vicious criminals, murderers, rapists, and pedophiles, whatever. The scummest of the scum, lowest of the low. And so they're all on this planet, and they found God, and that was the end of that. They were all born again Christians, and they died. That was pretty much it. There was no motivating factors there. There was no skepticism there. Everybody was just drinking the Jesus juice. And so now, in this assembly cut, we get some conflict. We get some actual existential crisis going on between these supporting characters. Whereas they're walking around, yes, they're praying and, you know, worshiping God, but they're also doubting. They're also skeptical. You know, they're more agnostic than they are born again. And I respected that. I actually enjoyed that more because once the aliens showed up, you have some that were true believers that was like, okay, if we'll fight back, but if we die, we good. We go to heaven. But you got the other ones that are like, I don't know. Is it? So they're fighting this battle within themselves alone with this alien that's running around, biting holes in their heads. So you got all this conflict going on that was added into this film that you didn't get in the theatrical version. I thought that was just genius. That was a genius move because who does it? Whether you're a Christian or whatever your denomination is, we all have those moments. We all had, and I'm a man of faith. You know, I believe in God. I believe in Jesus. But hey, I'm human too. And I do have those moments of skepticism like anybody else. But thankfully, it doesn't last long, you know, in my world. But I'm not about to preach a sermon to you. But anyways, one of the biggest changes, and I'm putting the air quotes up, that I super enjoyed, and one of the main reasons why I feel this film is superior than the theatrical version, is the addition of the character Golik, who is an inmate there on this planet. Now, in the theatrical version, he was in 2 scenes. Yeah, 2, maybe 2, 1.5. 1.5 scenes. But in the assembly cut, he has so much more. I mean, he is essential to the plot of the movie. Like I said, without him, the film could have moved on. They edited around it, of course, for the theatrical version, but it left so many plot holes. With this addition, just his addition, and it was only 2 more scenes. 2 short little scenes with his character told so much and did so much to enhance the plot of this film. It will blow your mind. His character is the one that I think he's the first one to encounter the xenomorph, the alien, maybe the second one, or the second time. But either way, he witnessed the xenomorph kill somebody. He got away. They had added another scene where he's sitting in the cafeteria. He's covered in his friend's blood or one of the inmates' blood that was next to him, and everybody thinks he killed him because on Earth he was a serial killer. He was a killer, you know. Oh, he killed the guy. All right, whatever, cool. And so they put him in this little straitjacket thing. They put him in the medical bay where Ripley and Charles Dance character is, and we see this in the theatrical version where after the inmate is killed and he's covered in blood, they just see the other inmates come and the warden bring him into the medical bay and slam him on the bed, and he's tied up and he's just freaking out because the alien is there. And this is the iconic scene with the alien is on, you know, right on top of Ripley, and the tongue come out. You know, it was in the trailers back then. It's the most iconic, one of the most iconic shots in the Alien franchise history. But it was right before that. We see him freaking out because he sees the xenomorph coming down from the ceiling. That's the last time we see that character in the theatrical version. But in this version, he sees it just like in the theatrical version. It comes down, it kills Charles Dance character. It confronts Ripley and runs off after taking Charles Dance character up with him. And he's in the bed, he's freaking out, almost to the point where you can see the wheels turning in his head, like, this thing has spared me twice. And he's obsessed with this thing now. So he manages to get out of his restraints. And at this point, there's another extra scene or extra point in the film where they actually trapped the xenomorph inside of this bay. They said it, now it's escaping my mind. Should have wrote it down. That's my bad. But they trapped him inside behind this big giant door, awaiting a way to kill it, or awaiting the company to come and blah, blah, blah. So they got a guard there, standing guard at the door. And so when Golic escapes out of the medical bay, he walks up to the door because he's feeling that he's been called. This thing is talking to him. It's God. And so to release him. And so he's going there to release the xenomorph. And so the guard that was there they're talking, and he slits the guy's throat. He kills him, and he's freaking out because he's like, I'm sorry, because he's reformed. He truly is reformed, or at least was. He was reformed, you know. He turned away from his killing ways, you know, and it was heartbreaking to see him murder a fellow inmate and to see his reaction. The actor who played Golic was just amazing. And that's another reason why I'm like, why did they leave this on the cutting room floor? This was amazing. So he opens the door, and the xenomorph, of course, kills him and runs off. Now it's free, you know. and that's when we get to the at least what leads us to our epic final third act of the film, running through the tunnels and closing the doors behind him scene. Unbelievable. I love that scene. I don't get in any version, but they managed to make it better in this version. There was more tension, but going back to the Golic character of it all, that added so much tension to that sequence. It added so much weight to the film. It's mind-boggling that a studio would step in and say, nah, that's too artsy. nah, we're not gonna flush out this character and give him motivation. Nah, people want to come see aliens rip people's heads off. Hey, that's all we're gonna give them. That's basically the notes. It's paraphrase to what they wanted in this movie. A completely different movie. Even though the movie has the same plot points. Ellen Ripley crashes on the planet. Both films have that. Ellen Ripley finds out that she's impregnated with an alien. Both films have that. Ellen Ripley dies at the end. Both films has that, even though the assembly cut has a twist. But all of them have the same plot points. They hit the mark, but it could have been more. This could have been still wouldn't have toppled Alien or Aliens. I think it's still lands at probably the third, maybe fourth. I don't know, because Alien Romulus is a good one. Alien 3 is better. I'm willing to say that now. But it not by much. Not by much. And the assembly cuts is what did it. Because initially, Alien Romulus was my third favorite Alien film. But it got moved out by the assembly cut of Alien 3. But anywho's, yes. Another major twist or change. Ellen Ripley wasn't discovered in the ship like she was in the theatrical cut. In the theatrical cut, the portion of the ship that crashed land, she's in a cryopod, and the inmates come out and they discover it's her. You know, to see Hicks' body gone. He's dead. Newt is dead. Both are from Aliens. And that created a problem too internally with Michael Biehn and the actress who portrays Newt in the film, but more so Michael Biehn, who portrayed Hicks in Aliens. He was upset, still is. I've seen an interview, podcast he was doing recently where he brought it up, and understandably so, because you got to get into the contractual obligation of it all, being killed off screen between movies. You know, you don't get a ceremonious exit from that character. Yeah, that would upset you. Then none of that changes. It was upsetting in the first version of this film, and it's upsetting in the assembly cut. But you had that. But in regards to them finding Ripley, and they found her in the ship, whereas in the assembly cut, she washes up on shore, like she was jettisoned out of the wreckage, and she washes up on shore. That's how she was discovered. Makes more sense to me. I mean, to say that was the opening, and when I started watching it and that happened, I was like, okay. Okay, I can believe there's more. It just something never set right with me on how they discovered the ship in the theatrical version of this movie. It just logically didn't make sense. Of course, it wasn't making any sense. The way it was edited and reshot for the theatrical version. And then we get to the coup de grace, the final scene. Now, nothing really changes except a lot. if that makes any sense. Let me explain. And this is my only flaw with this new version. The one change that was made that I didn't 100% get on board with. Now, I will say it's a nitpick. It doesn't really matter moment. You know, it still has the same impact moment, but it would have had just a little more of an impact if it would have happened. But in the same breath, logically, this version makes sense. The assembly version makes sense. And so let's go through the whole scene, because there are a lot of changes that took place in this scene. All right, after they vanquished the xenomorph, you know, poured the lid on him, he jumped out, and they poured the water on him, and he exploded because he was extremely hot. The company shows up with who we think is a Bishop android, with Lance Henderson coming back to reprise the role. So we thought. But he assures Ripley that he's not an android. He just designed the Bishop androids, which, once again, doesn't logically make sense because of the chronological nature of it all. But some things you do have to suspend disbelief and run with. Fine. Plus, you really don't trust this character because, number one, he works for the company. Number two, he looks exactly like Bishop. So there's that. He assures Ripley that, look, we're going to take it out. We're going to kill this thing. No one is a lie. No one is a lie in all this here. Both of those versions are exactly the same. It stays the same. 85, the character 85, who busts the Bishop guy across the side of the head with a monkey wrench. That's the same. This is where the difference come in, and they kill 85. This is where it deviates. Bishop stands up, and he's holding his head. He's bleeding. His blood is red blood. We know that androids have milky blood, that white substance that comes out of them. And so half of his ear is hanging off his head. Now, we do see this in a shot in the theatrical version, but it's kind of stretched out a little longer here. And he screams out to Ripley, I'm not an android, you see? I'm not an android. And so just that little added little token just makes it more. It adds to the seriousness of the situation that they sent this man to come and get Ripley or get this alien, retrieve it for the company, for the Watani Corporation. All that, just with that subtle line. And Lance Henderson's performance here is awesome, man. I love Lance, man. He is an awesome actor, underrated actor. But that's the subtle difference there. Now, the subtle difference when we get Ripley over this lava pit thing, and she falls back, but she says a line here that's not in the theatrical version. She just looks at them and says, "You're crazy," and falls back into the lava in her Christ crucifixion pose. And in the theatrical version, we all know we get that dramatic moment when all of a sudden, boom, the chest burster comes out, and Ripley, being Ripley, she musters up the strength. This is while she's falling. Musters up the strength and holds the xenomorph, the queen, holds it as they both burn up in this lava furnace type situation. All right. Ripley goes into the furnace. She dies. But there's no chest burst. There's no xenomorph. So it's kind of left a little ambiguous. It's kind of left up like, man, did she really have it in her? Or it just fell a little flat there. That's the only knock I have with that, because she just died. She just jumped into the the lava pit. Now, once again, did it logically make sense that Ripley would catch this xenomorph bursting out of her chest? No. Would she had the time to do this, descending into this lava pit? No. So that made no sense in the first version, but the impact of it all, I got it. I understood it, that she finally defeats this thing that she's been fighting for 3 movies. She finally was able to get the real upper hand, not just jettison it out into space like she did in the first 2 movies. She jettisoned it into hell. They both went into hell together. So that made sense. But it just, honestly, that never sat right with me. And I didn't realize it didn't sit right with me until I watched this version. Now, I had my problem with it because it didn't have that moment, but I sat there and let it sit for a second, and I was like, okay, she had to make this sacrifice. She had to do this. And the x-ray showed that it was there. We knew that seed was planted. We knew that it was actually there. It wasn't an ambiguous ending like, did she sacrifice herself for nothing? No, it was actually inside of her. And ultimately, she took that step. Now, where it flipped is when I really started to dive in logically and and wade over it for about an hour after I finished watching it. Was, well, And I know a lot of you who've seen it, seen the theatrical version, probably knew this already, probably watched the movie about 20 times, and it felt this way. But, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, so excuse me. But with that being said, with that impactful moment of the chest burster scene while floating into the lava, when you really sit back, and this is why I always had a problem with it. So if she would have turned herself over to this bishop guy and allowed them to do their surgery thing, that means they had to go all the way back to their ship and then get prepped and ready to freeze this thing or freeze her or have the surgery to remove it or whatever. Going by the theatrical versions ending, they wouldn't have had time to do that. The second she got off of that platform, the thing was out. So that wouldn't have made sense. With this version, that would have made sense. So with all that being said, this is the definitive version in my eyes. The assembly cut. I think this is the version that should have been released. This was the version that I don't know what the studio was smoking or snorting at the time, but this was the version that should have hit theaters in 1992. David Fincher, I think, gave us the best alien movie he could give under the circumstances. The movie overall, it still holds up the same to me. Of course, look, the special effects are early 90s special effects. It is what it is. Dated as I don't know what, all that is there, but that just adds to the joy of it all. Charles S. Dutton's performance in this movie, he's truly the star, and it's added upon in the assembly cut. As much as he was great in the theatrical version, in the assembly cut, even though there weren't a lot of changes to his character, there were some subtle things that they did throughout the film. It wasn't like they added one scene extra of Charles S. Dutton's character, but it was just extra little seconds, moments, or holding a shot at certain moments that's not in the theatrical version that just enhanced his character so much more. Charles S. Dutton should have been bigger than what he was. I say was like the man's gone. I think he's still alive. I hope I'm not speaking out of turn. Yeah, I think he's still alive. I think he's still working too, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. But his performance in Alien 3 was outstanding, man. Outstanding performance. He really was the star. I mean, Sigourney Weaver was great as Ripley, but she was Ripley. I mean, you seen Alien 1 or Alien, you seen Aliens, it's the same Ripley, which we enjoy, which we love. One of the most iconic female action stars to ever grace the silver screen. So I'm not taking that away. She was great. But, man, Charles S. Dutton was phenomenal in Alien 3. Without his performance, without his character, I think this movie falls flat. Because you needed that in this setting. For this story to be told, you needed that character. And he knocked it out of the park. This film, as diversive as it may be, by certain fans, some like the movie, some love the movie. Some people think it's the worst Aliens film ever. I'm not in that camp. I think that this is a key film in the franchise. No, it's not the best, and it's far from being the worst, but it is definitely a real good addition to this franchise. And it gave us some of the greatest moments in film, not just alien films, but in film. Iconic. The scene, as I described it earlier, where the alien confronts Ripley and she's crawled up against that wall, and you get that shot, that profiled shot, Ripley turning her head as the alien gets all the way up on her and asks for a French kiss, with the tongue coming out. iconic shot in film. That was one of the best shots. That's what made me go to the movies to go see this movie. That's what got me hyped up to see Alien 3. That shot in the trailer, and it was in the movie, of course, and it's still referred to, reference to in all of pop culture. I've seen a reference to it on The Simpsons. I've seen reference to that shot in I want to say Rick and Morty. I've seen references to this shot in buku forms of media. It is iconic. It all spawned from this movie. Another iconic scene has to be the third act. That scene inside of the halls of that little maze runner type situation where they were trying to push or guide the xenomorph into the furnace area so they can kill it, where he was running after the inmates. The inmates were using themselves as guinea pigs and running and closing the doors behind them. Oh my God. You want one of the most tense scenes in movie history. It especially in the assembly cut, because you know these characters now. They're not just cannon fodder. They're actual characters with backstories, with emotion. We got to know them. We got to cheer for them. We hoping they're surviving, and it's all that because of this cut. But it just added to the excitement, into the dread, into the tension of that scene. Bruh, that is awesome. The fact that xenomorph was running on the ceiling, running on the wall, and man, amazing scene. Still one of the best shot, best tone you can get from a horror science fiction type movie. I haven't seen that matched yet in 35 years. Still stings when I say that out loud. But this was excellent. I'm so happy that I was able to sit down and enjoy this assembly cut. It's been so long, and it came out in 92, if I'm not mistaken. I think, like I said, it came out with the DVD release. So it isn't like this just happened. This been happened. I'm just doing this show because I just watched it for the first time. I'm just experiencing it for the first time. And when I hear people badmouth Alien 3, obviously they did not see the assembly cut. And even before that, I still would make an argument for Alien 3. Alien 3 was a really good movie. It was good. No, it wasn't on the I think a lot of people watched Aliens and went right into Alien 3 and thought it was going to be the same type of movie. And they got let down. But you should have known better. It wasn't going to be the same type of movie. It was a different movie, just set in this same universe. And that's fine. Alien 3, the assembly cut, gets upgraded to a B+, with the theatrical version getting it had a C+, but this bumps it up to a B+. Awesome cut of a movie. Not all director's cuts does that for me. Sometimes I feel like it's the same thing, nothing lost, nothing gained. But if for this particular special edition, oh man, it improved the movie leaps and bounds, man. This was awesome. So I would like to know, what did you think of Alien 3, the theatrical version, and have you ever seen the assembly cut? Like I said, it's not. I think it's leaving HBO Max, but look for it wherever these Alien movies are being streamed, because I'm more than certain it's probably leaving HBO Max. It'll probably pop up on Hulu or Peacock or something. I don't know. That all because they trade movies every month. So seek it out if you haven't seen it. I promise you, it is a much, much better film than what the theatrical version was. But let me know. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Also, don't forget about YouTube. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel and like this video if you don't mind. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to Movie Goodness, where we examine life through cinema here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this retro review of Alien 3, The Assembly Cut. Want you all to know that I love you, continue to love everyone, and until we speak again, you all be blessed.